At this time, I'd like to introduce Anoop Chodorow. He is the Workforce Planning and Analytics HR Manager, so that he can share his personal experience of joining Ford Motor Company and also give a little background of workforce analytics at Ford Motor Company.
Thanks, Emily, and hello, good afternoon to everyone that's joined the webinar today. We're really excited to have you with us. And along with myself, I also have Rick Smith, Rob Tripp, and Nick Mills from my team to share with you the workforce planning and analytics journey. Very quickly, a bit about myself. This is my 24th year with the company. And out of that, about half of that I've been spending in direct operating roles in product development, engineering, manufacturing, and some of the business units. I've had the opportunity to work in Australia, Asia Pacific, and Thailand, India, and now in the US. So it's really an exciting time. And just for your information, in terms of background, I don't necessarily have an analytics type of background, but I do have an engineering, human resources, and business kind of advanced degrees. And the most exciting part of this role that I want to talk to you about is being able to bring together the business perspective, the business view about how do we bring together all the data and information analytics that's happening at the company. Very quickly, I want to kind of walk you through the history of workforce planning and analytics in Ford. I'll talk a little bit about the centers of excellence today, and then we'll talk about a little bit more deep dive into the workforce planning and analytics piece of it. First of all, I just want to share with you that Ford actually was privileged to win the 2013 award from the Institute of Operations Research and Management Sciences. And this was really a great recognition for Ford Motor Company, recognizing a company-wide efforts in analytics and data sciences. In fact, our history goes back to more than 60 years when Henry Ford II hired 10 young veterans from the U.S. Air Force Statistical Control Command. They were actually known as the Whiz Kids. And right from about 60, 70 years ago, the depth of workforce planning and analytics and data sciences and operations research has taken a deep-rooted perspective with the company. We have multiple centers of excellence today. In the company, we have analytics expertise in product development, marketing, sales, Ford Credit, human resources, to name a few. And there are numerous examples of where analytics and data sciences and operations research are being actively used in the company to move the workforce. Before I get into workforce planning and analytics, I just want to quickly talk to you about the position today. So we do have a vacancy for a workforce planning and analytics specialist. It's being created as a result of one of our employees leaving, so that's Rob Tripp. Rob has a PhD in statistics, and I'm going to be passing over to Emily, and we'll just quickly go through and ask some questions.
Okay, thanks, Anoop. As Anoop said, I do have a PhD in statistics. I won't tell you my dissertation title. It's really ugly. It was a long time ago. But I want to point out having a PhD is not a job requirement. That's a very different kind of thing. Quickly about me, my entire career has been in workforce planning and workforce analytics. I originally hired out of graduate school to a different automobile company, worked on hourly labor relations activities, strategic planning and HR. Since 1997, I've been full-time in the salaried workforce here at Ford Motor Company. A couple of high points in my own career is that, along with my colleague Rick Smith, you'll meet him later, we founded the Attrition and Retention Consortium. It's a network of major companies that does a confidential data exchange on benchmark data, a lot of analytic stuff. We also do a lot of sharing of best practices and reaching out to the academics and so on. Also had the pleasure of being involved in producing 2 books on workforce planning. One of them is Human Resource Forecasting and Modeling back in 1994. Another one is a brand new book called Positions, Strategic Workforce Planning Gets the Right Person in the Right Job, just produced by the American Management Association this year. In terms of key work and what we do here, I want to really focus one thing, is that we care very much about bringing a scientific mindset and the power of analytics to deal with issues that are relevant to the workforce, very relevant to the business, and look at alternatives to deal with some of those issues. Very much a scientific-oriented team here, very much future-oriented. What are the long-term consequences? So in terms of the work we do, again, deep knowledge of the workforce, deep knowledge of the issues impacting the business, a lot of focus on employee retention, aging workforce, things like what's the impact of defined benefit versus pension programs, and defined contribution on retirements and quits, workforce population demographics, the whole STEM issue, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education pipeline. Those are the areas that I focus on. Some of my colleagues have expertise in surveys in particular. We do some really deep work there as well. And as was mentioned earlier, we are increasingly a global team, not just a U.S. team. One thing that we are really focused on doing is looking for insights about the data, about the workforce that are based on data. Multiple sources of data, multiple connections. Just some quick ones we talk about. We do a lot of focus on getting information from whatever source is relevant, whether it's economic data, internal data. We do a really good benchmark data, as I mentioned earlier, with the Attrition Retention Consortium. We care a lot about what do we know from scientific research, whether it's psychology, econometrics, sociology, demographics. That's foundational to what we do and understand about how the world works and calibrate that against forward data. We engage with people in academics on a regular basis who are the experts. We engage with our peers in other companies on a person-to-person basis as well. Great sources of information sharing. Very much grounded in the history of Ford and the auto industry. And we work with HR professionals to make sure we are really grounded in and tied to what is relevant in Ford. As I said, really focused on historical trends. We do a lot of model building to forecast future impact of things. So I would say really core to the work that we're doing is using statistical models, operations research models. We build models, we develop them, we create some for internal use, we create some for sharing with our HR partners, use those tools to help us better understand the implications of the data of all kinds and be able to tell stories. A key part of this, being able to reach out and tell compelling stories that are based on the data that management finds a need to act on. We have a great partnership with finance, a lot of respect in the HR community who reach out to us for help on things. The hard part for me, of course, is leading a really exciting team, but it's come time in my life. That's why the job is open. So thank you very much.
Lots of great information. Thanks, Rob, for sharing that. Anoop, I want to ask you, why is this opportunity such a critical need to the business? And, a couple times I hear, that data to solve workforce issues is so important. Why is data so important, and why is it such a key part of this opening? If you can explain a little bit for everyone on the call.
Sure, Emily. If you can go to slide 5, let me kind of just start off the discussion from this slide here. I thought it would be really worthwhile for this group just to kind of go back again in history and take a look at this. What you see over here is a document that was created by an engineer by the name of Minard in 1869. And this is the first time in recorded history of about someone putting together lots and lots of data which talks about a business issue or a business condition, but also tells a story, as Rob was talking about. So what you see happening here in the slide, the top line is actually showing you Napoleon's army moving eastwards into Russia for the Moscow campaign. It started off with about 400,000 people in the army. And you can see the army taking twists and turns, going through ravines, deep valleys, the numerous battles along the way. They get to Moscow, they turn back. The black line is showing you the turning back from Moscow and moving back again westwards. And you can see the black line decreasing in size as it moves and ends up, by the time they get back to the border over a year's course, the army ends up with only 10,000 or thereabouts in terms of total workforce. So what Minard did was take lots of information, lots of different pieces of data, and put together how to quickly represent all of this information in a pictorial way that tells a story. And I kind of wanted to just start the discussion over here, because a lot about what we are facing today, and if you can go to the next slide, Emily, please. A lot about what we're facing today is how do we look at all the business issues that are facing us, all the constraints, all the challenges, and think about what are the relevant pieces of data that we have to pull together to help drive better business decisions. What you see on this slide is a summary of a survey that was, or a study that was done by MIT and Sloan a couple of years ago. And it talks about that organizations and companies that use analytics really stand out. And based on the information I shared with you with Ford Motor Company, there are numerous examples of where we as an organization have used this. In particular, in the last 6-7 years, many of you would have read about the turnaround story of Ford and how there is a deep-rooted culture of using data sciences, analytics, and operations research. And particularly our CEO, Alan Mulally, is a person who's been driving it, and under his stewardship and leadership, a lot of what we do today is about using data and information to help us drive better business decisions. So analytics definitely is a differentiator for the company. The second point I just wanted to reinforce is that data is not the biggest obstacle. And one of the things that we're trying to do in workforce planning and analytics is to look at all the different pieces of data that is out there. So we have learning and development data, we have recruitment data, we have compensation and benefits data, we have workforce planning data. And interestingly, one of the things that's coming up to us, and it's very evident based on what we're learning, is the more we look at this data and the more we can integrate this data into a holistic picture of what's happening, it helps us get a much deeper perspective, a much holistic perspective about our workforce challenges, issues, and risks and opportunities. And with a company so big and large and complex as Ford and many other organizations, there's a lot of information that we can get. So data is not necessarily the biggest obstacle. It's about how do we pull that together, how do we bring it into a coherent story, and that's a huge opportunity and a challenge for us. And then finally, the last thing I just wanted to reinforce before moving on is that how do we pull this data together in a way that helps business leaders understand what's happening in the business quickly. So rather than throwing lots of information, charts, graphs, and pieces of data together, it's important that we leverage our skills to be able to pictorially present it and tell a story. And the other second thing I wanted to reinforce is there is a huge tendency and a need for us to move from historical reporting to more predictive analytics. So this is where we can use the data that we know about workforce, past, present, and future, and talk about what might happen in the future, but not only leaving it there, then thinking about how do we relate it to helping us drive better business decisions. So as you can see, from a workforce planning and analytics perspective, there's lots of opportunities, and that's what we're really excited about. If you can go to the next slide, Emily says, which talks about the 4 core areas of work, this very quickly talks to you about our focus areas. So starting from the left-hand side of reporting, that's existing standard reporting that we have that we want to leverage, and we are right now going through a renewal project to really bring together and establish a common foundation for data globally. And what this project will do for us is able to provide us rich, accurate, and timely data for about our workforce and how it is spread out across the company globally. The second thing is analytics on the top side. And this is about how do we leverage statistical tools, modeling techniques that Rob talked about, in a way to help us bring out richer and more valuable information about the workforce. And we do know that reporting and analytics is on a continuum, and as I mentioned before, it's about moving from traditional historical reporting to more futuristic, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. The other thing I wanted to quickly reinforce is about operational workforce planning and strategic workforce planning. These are the other 2 focus areas of our work, and it's about not only understanding the workforce needs of our workforce today, but also being able to predict that into the next 5 to 10 years, being able to integrate that into the business planning process, and as a way, helping our business leaders understand the workforce risks and opportunities and help us think about, what are the things we need to start doing today from a strategic HR perspective, either making changes to the HR business plan or to the broader company business plan to help us mitigate those risks and realize those opportunities. If we can move to the next slide, this talks a little bit about in terms of what we're looking for in the opening. And after that, I'm going to be passing over to Emily so that some of the other team members can also chip in and provide some more perspective. So obviously the person we're looking for is someone who is really passionate about workforce data and analytics with some prior experience, because this is an area obviously you really have to be really passionate and interested and have a kind of a keen sense for information. The second thing is about being able to take lots of different pieces of data, being able to model that, as Rob talked about. There are different modeling techniques that we use. We're looking to expand that. The second thing, or the third thing here is systemic thinking. As I mentioned before, we do have lots of opportunities to bring together different pieces of data in a holistic way, and being able to think about what does the overall total holistic picture look like, and how do we use that and drive data and insights to tell a story. But most importantly, not just leaving it over there, but working with our business leaders to help drive better business decisions. Of course, we're looking for someone who's going to be team-oriented. We are a very close-knit team, and the team will in a minute talk about that. And given the fact that it's a very fast-paced business environment, a desire for strong drive for results is going to be critical to success. And we also have a 1-4 behaviors that you see on the slide over here, which talks about how we work. It's not just what we do, but how we do is also very critical to success and very closely driven by the 4 values that you see over here. Emily, let me pass it back to you. I know you had a couple of other questions.
Thanks, Anoop. I'd also like to introduce Nick Mills, who is the Personnel Research Manager, and Rick Smith, who is the Process and Information Manager. We're both on the call. I'd like you both to explain a little bit about your team and the work that you guys have been doing. So, Nick, if you could start off first, please.
Great. Thanks, Emily. My name is Nick Mills. I'm an IO psychologist by training, and I've been with this team for, well, 15 or 16 years. And I just want to give you an idea of the type of work that we do, or I particularly do. And I want to talk in particular about a couple of really neat projects I've worked on recently. One of the things that we do is develop stories based on data and analytics. And sometime back here in the company, we had a bit of a problem with our employee morale as measured in our employee surveys. And so what we were able to do is look at some of our quarterly survey results and our annual results over the course of several years, and map those results against events that have happened within the company, and also looked at various external survey benchmark results. And we were able to really sort of break the code on what was driving our employee morale. And we built a compelling database story about it and pitched it an approach for improving our employee morale to our senior leadership. And they were convinced by the story and approved some of the work and some of the sort of the remedies that we had proposed, which is really fulfilling in and of itself. But the best part was that it actually succeeded beyond our wildest expectations. We saw dramatic and sustained improvement in our employee morale based on the interventions that we had proposed. So really we were able to help the company improve the morale of its employees, and it was also a kind of a win for our little analytics team as well. It gave us some real good high visibility credibility. So that was a really fulfilling project. Another one that that I particularly work on has to do with our business plan review meetings. This is a meeting that our CEO has with all his direct reports. So it represents all the business units and all the functional organizations within the company. They meet twice a month, and it's really a big part of how they run the business. Major, this is a very high-profile meeting. During the meeting, they review what's going on both internally and externally. It's very data-intensive. They're looking externally at global trends and research findings. Internally, they're looking at progress toward plans on various priorities and looking at status on key metrics like market share, financial performance, various people metrics. And as our CEO is fond of saying, the data will set you free. He says this frequently, and as someone who works with data and analytics on a daily basis, you got to know that it's great for us to hear that kind of thing. So anyway, in that meeting, my role is to prepare the presentation that our group VP of HR takes into the meeting, which is really pretty cool because, first of all, I get to spend some time with our VP of HR, who's a very sharp lady, but also, because of all this work, we really have at our fingertips a very good summary of workforce trends, both internally and externally. So, we've got a sort of a several-page summary of what's going on in the company, what's going on outside in terms of HR. And so it's, from the company perspective, it's been great, work, because it's how we run our business. From a personal perspective, I feel like I'm a better HR person than I've ever been before. So it's been really good that way. Last thing I want to talk about is something that I think Rob mentioned about a fun team. We've been together for 15, 20 years. As a team, we know each other very well. We try to keep things light. There's lots of jokes, and we have team lunches, and we even have a trophy that we give out when someone does something particularly good. So, we do work hard, but we also take time to enjoy the ride and enjoy each other. Just as on a final note, it is really, I'm sorry to see Rob leave. I understand why he has to do it, but we're such a close-knit team that it's a kind of a real loss. So thanks for your time. It's a pleasure talking to you about some of the work we do, and I'll turn it over to Rick.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. My name is Rick Smith. I'm a psychologist as well, although not an IO psychologist. I'm a research psychologist with area of specialization in cognitive processes. I have been with Ford Motor Company now about 18 years, and it's been an interesting and exciting career in a lot of ways, and it's becoming increasingly interesting under the leadership of our CEO, Alan Mulally. One of the things I wanted to comment on a little bit is the type of work that I have gotten involved in here, particularly as of late. And much of it is process-oriented. And by that I mean we are at a point where we are developing new process as it relates to strategic and workforce planning, developing that in a global way and an integrated way that hasn't existed in Ford before. So it's a particularly interesting and exciting time to join Ford. One thing I would mention, Nick quoted Alan Mulally on the data shall set you free, and he's famous for saying that, but I would comment that the data is not free. It requires considerable resources and funding to have the data that you need to do the work that we do. And as evidence of that, one thing that hasn't been touched on up to this point is that as of 3 or 4 years ago, our HR systems and HR data was not integrated globally. Under the direction of our CEO, we have had a project team, a large project team that's been focused on developing a common integrated database for HR worldwide, and that is about to launch here within this year. And as a part of that project, we're affiliated with that project team under ANOOP. We are now charged with developing the strategic workforce planning processes to bring a global and integrated approach to the way we plan human resources for the organization, and to bring data to that decision-making effort. So very, very interesting and exciting time to be joining Ford and contributing to that effort. It's been exciting so far, and many, many challenges that lie ahead of us, and we're looking to add a person with the right skills and talent to help us make all that happen. One thing I would follow up on Nick's comments too about the team that I work with. It is fun. We have a lot of unique and interesting personalities that are a part of the team. But what I value most about the team that I work with is the extent to which it's an approachable team. Every individual is someone I can feel comfortable going to and getting guidance and help if I'm stuck on a project, and I really value that, and I try to return that to my teammates. So I really, the support and the level of teamwork here is exceptional, and it's a really important part of what makes this a good work environment to be a part of. So kind of wrap it up there, but a really excellent opportunity for the person with the right skills who can help us solve some of the challenges we have ahead.
Thanks, Rick. We are running, I think we have about 4 or 5 minutes left, so I do want to squeeze some questions in that I do see on the chat as well here. So let me start by asking, let's see. Okay, can you please tell a little more about what might be expected of a new employee in the first 30 days of employment? So Anoop, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. I can take that, and if anyone wants to add in, please do that. So I think the biggest thing that we're looking for in the first 30 to 40 days is to really get into the team, settle down, and transition in terms of picking up from Rob before he finishes some of the key responsibilities. So 2 or 3 key projects that Rob has been working on is the demographics modeler, the workforce story. So we're looking at what does our present workforce look like, what will it look like over the next 10, 15, 20 years, And all of this is driven by the modeling work that Rob has been doing. So there's a lot of heavy modeling work that Rob has developed and is continuing to build out. Being able to pick that up will be one thing. The second thing will be to help support and guide the team as we go through the phase of understanding what are the processes, tools, and technology that we bring into Ford to help us really drive workforce planning and analytics to the next phase. And the third thing would be from a position perspective, is really understand what are the key business challenges that's facing the company, both from a regional and a global perspective, because a lot of the work that we do here, and you heard Rick, Nick, and Rob talk about it, is to really work very closely with the business leaders, understand the business issues, and then help bring in the data, the analytics, and the insights that provide support and decision-making assistance for our business leaders. So they would be the three things, Emily, that I think would be critical in the first 30 to 90 days.
Great, thank you, Anup. Also, it looks like a question about whether there is relocation or not, because the position is located in Dearborn.
Yep, that is absolutely right. The position is located in our world headquarters building in Southeast Michigan in Dearborn. So there is relocation support available through the recruitment process.
Great. Also, let's see. This one is actually for Rob. Can you tell me more about the type of math analytic models that you would be using? Because definitely for you, since you are in this role currently.
Right. One of the basic models is sort of they used to call them stock and flow models. They come out of operations research and supply chain things, where you're actually tracking the flow of people or a cohort of people over time based on certain assumptions. So I have built models in several different applications. One of them I do pretty widely is a very complex Excel thing. It's got about 20,000 formulas in it that actually tracks aging of the workforce, looks at service, looks at hiring trends, attrition trends, a whole bunch of things. That's one kind of model. The other kind of models we've been using are what are called survival analysis models, where you're looking at individual employee data to make decisions about questions about, for example, do women have a higher quit rate than men, when you adjust for things like age and service and job area and things like that.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. I just kind of want to wrap things up and thank you to Anup and Rob, Nick, and Rick for joining us today to talk about this exciting opportunity. So I want to thank everybody today for the call, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening.